Two of the best, brightest, smartest minds are with us. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, and former prosecutor, New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Welcome, both of you. Mr. Speaker, your thoughts?
Well, this is a long overdue development. They should never have closed it in the first place. It raises real questions about the computers that they agreed to destroy, which are now, of course, not available for this reopened case. Proves to anybody who has any doubts that the case is real, despite political pressure. And it should sober every American to realize that if you were to elect Hillary Clinton, she might spend the entire first year of her presidency fighting to survive in a series of investigations. And I think it's a very stunning development.
Mr. Mayor, let's go over what we learned from WikiLeaks. We have emails that show that Hillary did not use her private server for security reasons. They literally say in there, well, it makes it seem like she consciously went home to her server for security reasons, quote, which would fall apart under any scrutiny. That was in one of the WikiLeaks emails. We know that Obama lied when he said he learned about the secret server from the press. And then we have discussion of what I would argue is obstruction of justice when Podesta and Cheryl Mills are saying maybe we shouldn't hand it over, even though those emails are under subpoena. We know the Clinton campaign in direct communication was indirect communication with the DOJ, in direct communication with the State Department. That would reflect that some level of collusion was going on during an investigation. And WikiLeaks has shown us that, too. What do we make of this?
Well, Sean, from the very beginning, you and I have been very skeptical of this investigation. I just had occasion to review the 302 for something that I'm writing for Donald Trump. And the 302 of her interview is what I would regard as an F- in FBI Quantico school. For example, she says that she didn't have a memory of her exit interview from the CIA because of her concussion. The agent never asked how long did that loss of memory last and what corroboration do you have for that. She says she didn't know that C meant confidential. The most inexperienced FBI agent would follow that up with a question such as, did you see an A, B, D, or E? In other words, all of her 37 failures of memory, things about which she would have a hard time believing she would fail to remember. There's no follow-up question by the FBI. It's almost as if the interview was fixed, and the agent was told not to follow up.
It is very telling that...
If I had been given that 302 as a U.S. attorney, I would have thrown it back at the FBI.
Well, it is interesting. Angelina Jolie was questioned by the FBI for 4 hours about one plane trip with her husband, a commercial flight, and whether or not the husband had used physical force against their son. But the standard is very clear. The statute is very clear. I'll ask both of you this. It's not an issue of whether or not she's negligent or grossly negligent. In this case, we know it was way beyond that she knowingly and purposefully made decisions and committed actions to set up a server under her exclusive control and possession in order to avoid information that legally was available to the public and to the Congress, and that they destroyed such information. Isn't that a crime?
Yes, and all of those things that Comey has in the report about no intent, everything he writes about is the evidence that we prosecutors use at trial to prove intent. You don't prove intent because somebody writes out on a piece of paper, I intend to commit a crime. You prove intent by things like destruction of evidence. Well, we had plenty of destruction of evidence. We prove intent by false exculpatory statements. We've got about 50 of those. In other words, different statements at different times. The judge will charge a jury in a case. You can take a false statement and you can use that as evidence of intent. So I find the report completely contrary to the conclusion of no prosecution. And now with this additional evidence coming out, it must be the source of tremendous embarrassment to all those wonderful people of the FBI that their agency blew this investigation as badly as they did.
Mr. Speaker, you hear Trey Gowdy.
If I could, Sean.
Go right ahead.
Because Rudy was a federal prosecutor, and as you know, I'm an attorney. I'm a history teacher, not an attorney. But Rudy, if you were the U.S. prosecutor looking at this total evidence, isn't it fair to say that there are literally hundreds of counts that could be brought against her? I mean, I don't know whether, for example, each of the 33,000 emails that were deleted becomes a count, or each of the 50 or 60 people who came to visit her at the State Department who were donors to the Clinton Foundation. It just seems to me, the more you look at the totality of what WikiLeaks is unveiling, the clearer, and then add to that what the FBI has released, the clearer it is that you would literally have a case that had an extraordinary number of counts in it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Newt. The reality is, I think it was about 10 months ago that I gave Sean a list. It began as 13 statutes that she arguably violated. We then extended it to 15, and now I've run out of room on my iPad for all of the different crimes that she at least has probable cause to believe she committed. Whether you'd convict her or not, I think you would, because the evidence of intent is more than I've ever seen in any case that I ever prosecuted. But you could, if you wanted, write a 200 count indictment. And we're not even talking about the Clinton Foundation. And when I read WikiLeaks, I can't figure out for the life of me how the FBI is not investigating that. There are straight quid pro quos. You know, the uranium deal with Russia, when she approves uranium for Russia, and all of Clinton's friends make millions of dollars, and they donate billions to the Clinton Incorporated.
Well, and it seems to me that some people like Podesta and Cheryl Mills actually would almost be under a RICO count of a conspiracy to commit crime.
Well, yeah, I think I mean I think there's no doubt that you put together the Clinton Foundation and the State Department, and you have, I think in one of their emails they say the Clinton Inc., which would be like their organized crime family.
Right.
And basically different forms of crimes are being used to acquire money. In some cases, it was straight out bribery, like intervening for UBS with the IRS when the Clintons got about $3 million for that. In some cases, it was conflict of interest. In some cases, it was obstruction of justice. But there you would have another whole big, gigantic indictment. I mean, we're essentially on the verge of putting a criminal family in charge of the White House.
Let me step in, and that's a great transition where I want to go. Mr. Speaker, I'll go to you on this. You know, we've got 11 days left in this campaign. This is a monumental development for a lot of different reasons. And I would argue that all polls that currently exist get thrown out the window, depending, though, of course, we now know the media is corrupt, and they've been colluding with the Clinton campaign. And I'm sure that there's going to be a woman that comes out tomorrow against Donald Trump that they'll plant out there. It's pretty much an assurity. How does this play out as it relates to this election, Mr. Speaker?
Well, look, I think it's devastating. I can't quite imagine what the Clinton campaign headquarters is like right now. I mean, I ran in 1974 the very first time during Watergate, and I can tell you, these things hit you like thunderbolts, and they just jar you to your teeth. And the American people now have to ask themselves a question. Do you really want to nominate somebody who is who's almost certainly going to be under a criminal investigation for years to come? I mean, she's never going to get out from under this. And the more we learn about it, the more we learn about Bill Clinton, the more we learn about the foundation, the more we learn about, I'll just give you two simple examples that the IRS has to open cases on. The WikiLeaks now tells us they got all sorts of gifts. Well, did they pay taxes on them? Where's the list of gifts? What were they worth? Did she register them at the State Department when she was secretary? I mean, there's a whole zone there that hasn't even bubbled up yet. The foundation, I think, and again, Rudy's the lawyer, I'm not, but I think that the foundation is very liable to lose its tax-deductible status. And then you have $2 billion in donors who are taking tax breaks who are going to have to go back and pay taxes on everything they ever gave the Clintons. I mean, all of these things coming together, and then you have things like the Raytheon case, where you really have this sense that the fix was in a way that is really pretty amazing. And you're going to have a whole case about whether or not Raytheon's lobbyists arranged for the Secretary of State to arrange for them to get a multi-billion-dollar contract in the Middle East. I mean, all these things are going to keep coming.
Let me ask you both this. Does this not make the case that we should have voting on Election Day, not early voting? Of course, a little absentee voting is fine, but does this make a case not to have early voting?
Well, yeah, I would say yes. I mean, the reality is that you really want each campaign to be able to bring itself to a conclusion at a certain point. The reality is we're going to be hurt a lot by early voting if there are more and more serious allegations against her. Although, my goodness, Sean, it's pretty clear and has been pretty clear for a couple of weeks that they are seriously in violation of the law. And Newt is correct. The Clinton Foundation thing may even be bigger than these exposure of emails and the lying about emails. I mean, this was a massive multi-million-dollar fraud, and the idea that the foundation did good, I mean, you're going to have to examine that carefully. A lot of that good was done by paying money to the people who donated to the Clinton Foundation to actually do the work. that the Clinton Foundation then paid for the poor people, like in Haiti, where the people in Haiti hate the Clintons because they were building stuff not in the place where it was supposed to be built. And I think one of Mrs.
Well, remember what
Clinton's
WikiLeaks showed us too, Mr. Mayor. I mean, they showed two separate lists: Friends of Bill, Foundation donors, and the purpose was that you would.
It wasn't as if I donate money to the Red Cross. I donate money to the Red Cross, and then the Red Cross gives me $100 million contract. That would.
Well, that then it becomes pay to play. I mean, just like the Moroccan deal. You mentioned the uranium deal. That's another big one.
Well, the uranium deal is straight out and out. About as criminal as it gets, and also imperils our national security by giving up 20% of our uranium to Russia. But there, Clinton's pals made hundreds of millions.
Last word, Mr. Speaker.
The Clinton Foundation made all that money back in the profit they made on the sale of the plutonium to Russia. I mean, that's about as
a big
crime
deal
as you're going to find in the last maybe 20 or 30 years.
Mr. Speaker, walk us through the next 11 days. Last word.
Well, I think Donald Trump has a great positive message in his contract with the American voter and his New Deal for African Americans. And he now has a perfect negative message in just saying, if the FBI is reopening the investigation, how can you elect the most crooked person ever to be nominated by a major party? I think this is a devastating blow to them, because it reminds everybody that even with all the pressure Comey's been under from the Obama administration, the evidence just got too great for the FBI institutionally not to reopen the case.
Unbelievable. All right, we'll continue to follow it. I think both of you are on TV tonight, if possible. If you weren't asked yet, I'm asking you now publicly.
Yeah, I'm going to see it now. Actually, I'll be out at Woodstock at the bookstore. We're going to do your show.
We appreciate it. All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Mayor, I hope you can join us as well.